Hey interwebs, it's Jackie K, and welcome for another edition of the KayCast. Before I go into the plans for this week with the channel and otherwise, allow me to get some apologies out of my system. First of all, I apologize for those of you watching it on Podbean for not realizing that I didn't have an audio file until about half a week after it was uploaded. That should be fixed now, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out already, the audio for the first KayCast should be up. I do want to thank you all for the support I've gotten on that already. First episode was up and it didn't even have the audio file, and I believe I got at least 5 followers, 5 to 10, within the first week. That's pretty incredible for me considering the rate that I've been going on YouTube lately. Really appreciate all you guys checking it out. With that said, I do apologize if you're getting this later than usual. I'm planning on getting these up Saturday and Sunday, but this week it might be looking more like Sunday and Monday, due to the fact that I didn't have the time to record yesterday and today like I was planning to. Also, if you hear any fans in the background or air conditioning or anything like that, it's been hot this week, and I've decided that I'd rather get this recorded without going insane than to try to record it without any noise in the background. Right now I just got the fan going, so that should be easy enough to do a noise removal filter and get that out of the system. Now, before we go into the news and discussion for this week, online activity. Let's see if I can narrow it down to 2 to 3 minutes starting now. So for YouTube, I'm not sure when I'm going to be working on Yellow vs. Leaf Green. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated when I actually get somewhere in it. Chibi Robo Ziplash is going to be the main content for the channel besides the KayCast. However, I might have to start doing filler through backtracking the previous levels. This week I go back to the previous level to showcase a feature that I wouldn't be able to otherwise. But depending on how much time it takes to edit the next levels, I might need to do a little extra filler. So I am taking suggestions anywhere from World 4 down of levels that you want me to revisit in Chibi Robo Ziplash and attempt to 100%. Feel free to let me know in whatever comment section you have, and I'll keep them in mind. Yeah, essentially I goofed up because I was trying to improve the quality of my videos since I'm no longer streaming them by capturing directly instead of using OBS, but it's been so long since I've done that, I forgot that I didn't set the stereo mixer. So essentially, I have no game audio. I'll try to get as close to the original game audio as I can, but obviously it won't be perfect. But I do appreciate your patience in the meantime. With that out of the way, what I've been up to lately, well, a huge chunk of my time that's not being devoted to the internet has been going to improving my work situation. Videos, including the KayCast, are more of a hobby. They're not going to pay the bills, so I'm working to improve my job so I can get that better. And I think I'm making good progress. That's the main reason I wasn't able to record yesterday or today, because I had some phone calls and interviews to set up and go to. And I think I made really good progress with all that, so it should be paying off. Jeez, I can't even remember playing any games this week. I have been doing quite a bit with the Amiibos. I'm making good progress on one of the customs. If you haven't been following me on Twitter or Instagram, I'll probably have some final photos to post up on the social media sites later on though. The art sites in particular, I'll really make sure that I have all the photos updated by the next couple weeks. For those of you who don't know, it would be Jackie K, JACKITKAY for Facebook, JACKIT K for DeviantArt. The first spelling that I mentioned for Instagram. And for Twitter is JackItStuff, JackItStuff. I might have been saying it wrong on the previous KayCast, so I apologize for that. That should be the more accurate JackandK Twitter account. I just figured that even if you just search JackandK, you should be able to find most of these networks just fine. But more on Amiibos when we get into that section. Oh yeah, because I want to save Pokemon later because I have Sun and Moon, quote unquote spoilers. I guess the Amiibo stuff we're getting into now. Okay, I'll be honest with you guys, there isn't really any Amiibo news this week. I'm not too surprised though, because Amiibos are a pretty niche topic, and we've gotten some pretty big news about new figures just the last week. So I'm not too surprised. There was one thing that caught my eye Amiibo related though, so I wanted to make sure to share it. For those of you who don't know, because you don't follow Apple like me, they apparently had a press conference this week. To be fair, I only know about it because people on my social media feed actually do follow Apple, and we're just following it because it's probably the biggest press conference Apple will have this year. Essentially, they showcased the new iPhone, the iPhone 7, iPhone Plus, and Apple Watch Series 2. And oh boy, I'm not going to go into it because there's a lot of people who do a lot more in amusing fashion than I possibly could. But let's just say it wasn't that great. Let's just say it hasn't really received the positive reception that they're hoping for. In fact, the best thing that came out of it didn't really involve them at all. I'll admit, this blows me away to think that we're actually in the age this is happening. In an interview IGN got with Nintendo creative fellow Shigeru Miyamoto, I swear that's the way it's spelt on the news article. It's not spelled Shigeru Miyamoto. And what is it with me not being able to pronounce names since I started the KayCast? Don't think I haven't noticed. I'm just trying to hide the fact that it's a problem. Before I get too off topic though, it mentioned how the Japanese game maker was interested in using Apple's NFC technology with Amiibos. There's nothing we can announce today, but it's certainly an area we are interested in. End quote. Quote, and today's Apple announced some news about their NFC technology. Article goes on to say that essentially Apple's becoming more lenient with their NFC technology, to the point where they actually could do Amiibo functionality with Apple and i products now. This doesn't mean that we're actually going to get any Amiibo related things with them, don't get me wrong. Saying that there is would be no more than a rumor. But the point of this article is that they're opening up more to the possibility. Which I could be down for. It'd be something to actually get me more into using my smartphone for gaming. Because the mobile game market is a demographic that I tend to avoid. I completely respect them, but the mobile games aren't really a type of game that I get interested in. It is kind of funny though, because the whole reason Nintendo and Miyamoto were at this Apple conference in the first place was because they announced a new Mario game for the mobile market. Super Mario Runner, which for those of you who are familiar with the mobile market, is exactly how it sounds. It's an auto runner with Mario in it. Oh, I still remember the days when every founding founder at Nintendo said, we will never be involved in the mobile market. Well, maybe that's exaggerating the words, but it feels like just a year ago, Nintendo had zero interest in being involved in mobile gaming at all, and look at us now, we have Miyamoto. Okay, thinking more about it, I don't remember exactly what platforms Miyamoto was on, but it was on a lot of mobile gaming platforms. And that was Nintendo was directly involved with it. It even ties directly to the My Nintendo Rewards program to this very day. And they're still doing promotions in regards with Amiibo. And then we got Pokemon Go, which I am well aware was not involved with Nintendo at all. Minus maybe a little bit of publishing, but even that was more on the Pokemon Company's side. But there was a game that I never imagined would be in the mobile market ever since the mobile gaming market popped up in the first place. Probably even more surreal before then. And then there was those announcements on the Fire Emblem and Animal Crossing mobile games. By the way, those got pushed back, so they're not coming out as soon as they were planning on them. We do got a date, but this is a tangent as is, so I didn't take notes of when those dates are. And now, Mario, the face of Nintendo, is getting an auto-running game on the iOS marketplace engine. To be honest, I'm not quite positive what would be the better wording for this particular case. But we're getting a Mario game on cell phones. A year ago, no one would dream of that happening. Everyone involved in stocks wanted that to happen, but the people who were core platformers, played Nintendo platform games and weren't really involved in the mobile market, we were in such a denial of this ever happening. And here it is in front of our face, and I am looking at a news article talking about how NFC technology for cell phones might be incorporated with Amiibos in the future. Oh boy, how time has gone by. But you know, if it's free and is out on the Android market, Google Play Store, I'll give it a shot. It's just that I don't have a cell phone that runs on iTunes. And especially after this whole press conference and what they have in store for Apple phones and devices in the future, I don't plan on it. Man, that whole headset story. I go into it, but I'd rather save it for someone who I know will do it better. So I'll try to give you a link in the YouTube section for you guys listening on audio. If you go to YouTube and look up a channel under the name John, one of the YouTubers I watch, who goes by John Paula, he did a really, I'm not sure, it seems like a good blend between informative and funny to me, so I would recommend checking out that video if you want to know more about the headset and why everyone is in such an uproar over it. Alright, I took the time to actually look it up. So if you go to youtube.com/users/John, go to the video section and look for a video called No Headphone Jack on iPhone 7. What a stupid decision. That is the video I'm talking about. If you enjoy anti-Apple rants, you will love this one. And this would make a perfect tangent to Pokemon Go, but because I'm such a sucker about talking about Amiibos and I still have stuff to talk about my own customs, I will go to that because otherwise we're never going to get a chance to bring the topic back to it. So as for custom Amiibos, I've been working between finishing up my duck hunt and turning it into a custom. I have a Pokemon as a Skylander, another one, in the works. I'm actually recording a speed paint for it as I'm doing it, so that will be up on YouTube around the time I finish up that Amiibo. And last but not least, I am cleaning up the Super Guy Donkey Kong that I made a long time ago. It was one of my earlier projects, but I've learned a lot about painting Amiibo since then, so I want to go back and try to clean it up. It's not going to look as great as some of my newer projects, but it's going to look a lot better than it did before, therefore better than some of my older stuff. And I also got new brushes since I first started that custom, so I can actually paint the DK back on instead of trying to paint around it. And even though it's not perfect professionally made, it's a lot better than it was before. Unfortunately, I just don't think I'll be able to clean it up as much as I like. But it'll be a lot more presentable and sellable than it was before. And that's my main goal with the project of it. I'm super stoked about the Duck Hunt one, despite it not being one I plan to sell. Because it started out as me just doing the Dalmatian skin from Smash Brothers. But then I got to thinking, what would I do with the duck? And I'll just leave it at that. I'll reveal it next week when I am finally done. Or you can follow me on social media where I've been strongly hinting at what it could be already. But if you don't want to follow me, I will mention it next week. It's just you can't post pictures on a podcast because that defeats the purpose. As for those watching it on YouTube, don't worry all you listeners, they're not going to get it either. They're going to have to go to social media or wait until next week if they want to know. And now that I've exhausted everything related to Amiibos that was on my mind for this week, I can finally move on to Pokemon Go without any regrets. Both of these stories come right off the Pokemon Go support blog page, sponsored by Niantic themselves. And the first one happened not too long ago after I recorded the last KayCast. In it, they briefly go over the appraisal feature that was released what feels like so long ago. And they mention how they have new features in the works, one of them being right around the corner, what they call the Buddy Pokemon. For those of you who are familiar with Pokemon following you around in Yellow or Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it is not too far off from that, probably the closest you can get in a Pokemon Go environment. As mentioned on their page, you get to pick your favorite Pokemon, mark it as your buddy, and when you pull up your trainer profile, it'll be right behind you, just like how when you pick a team, it reflects your color on your trainer profile. But it's more than just decorational purposes. It opens up to unique in-game rewards and experiences. Some of these rewards include candies for walking together, and you have the ability to change your buddy Pokemon at any time. That's all they really said about the buddy system, so we're not exactly sure how it's going to work quite yet. But it sounds like it's going to be a good way to grind up candies for a Pokemon that you manage to catch one through either breeding or just happen to be in the right place at the right time, but are struggling to catch any more, but you really want to evolve and power it up. Or you could just use your favorite Pokemon, like the feature's probably intended to, and get rewards for it. I figured I'd throw the alternative out there for those of you who aren't really excited about this feature. Because when you look at it that way, everyone should be excited about this. Because even if you don't have a favorite Pokemon, this is going to be a really good way to actually get candies for Pokemon that you don't run into too often because you're unfortunate to not live in the proper area. And yet you're still rewarded for playing the game like you're supposed to, walking around the world and doing Pokemon Go things. I found out about the second event around the time the Apple event was going on. You know, I'm just now realizing it was something actually mentioned in the Apple event and not just on their site. That would explain why I found out about it around that time. Anyways, this news is actually pretty exciting despite the fact that I'll never have access to it. Pokemon Go revealed an Apple Watch app. And that might not seem that exciting at first, but this app, from the way it sounded and talked about in the article, is going to be built right around the Apple Watch, including a lot of features that we kind of wish were already on the phone. As I quote, Apple Watch will add a seamless way to interact with the game through easy trackers, habit notifications, and quick taps to keep playing. Additionally, Pokemon Go app for Apple Watch encourages workouts with summaries of your activity, which fits nicely both with an next mission to get you moving as well as the many people already use their Apple Watch. This is essentially what I want out of Pokemon Go. A way to seamlessly go on walks and exercise without having to pause every 10 seconds to actually flick the phone and catch Pokemon and sit down, spin this, get stuff in that. And I know Pokemon Go Pro is coming out, I think a week from now, if not sooner. And that essentially does a lot of what I wanted to do with the whole being able to interact with the game while not having to pause from your walk. But this Apple Watch app, from the screenshots I've seen and the article, really makes it take it one step further, where you actually interact with the game rather than just press a button. And I kind of hope that something similar to this comes to the phones, because there's no way I'm going to be able to afford an Apple Watch. I am really not made out of money. I'm not even sure if I'll be able to get the Go Plus right away, not just because of how hard it was to pre-order it, but I'm a little tight on money, at least tighter than usual. So I'm trying not to buy anything I wasn't already planning on buying. And I'll admit, when the Pro was first announced, I was going to try to go without it, because I didn't know much about the game back then, and I just assumed that it's a free phone app, why would I pay extra to use it? This little wireless watch thing that does the game playing for me. Now that I'm really getting into Pokemon Go and going on walks, the purpose of the Plus has revealed itself to me, and I wish I would have saved up for it sooner. And between these two new announcements, the buddy system and the app for the Apple Watch, it seems like a lot of the Pokemon Go wishes that were in the back of my mind, that I was hoping to talk about in the future, are being answered as we speak. Which is great, but this does bring a good time for me to bring up a couple more things that I'm hoping will get addressed through either an update or a feature, or through some other form for Pokemon Go. First update that comes to my mind, I'm actually hoping gets addressed with the buddy system update, and that would be daily bonuses. A lot of other cell phone apps have a system where when you log in, you get rewarded just for starting up the game. And while I think that would be too simple for Pokemon Go, I do think we need more of a way to reward people just for walking around, even if they can't make it to a Pokestop. I live in a pretty rural area, and it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to get into a really populated area that I can actually take advantage of walking around and getting Pokestops. Pokemon rarely even appear around where I can walk, and I usually have to drive if I actually want to even go catch anything. So I think a daily reward system would be a good way to encourage people to go and use the app every day, even if they can't afford or take time out of their schedule to drive out to the city to go for a walk. And it would encourage something that I really feel should be pushed more with Pokemon Go: walking around natural areas. When I first got Pokemon Go, I was so excited because I thought the fact that I lived in a rural area meant that I would be encountering more Pokemon than if I was just walking around the city. Or at least Pokemon that normally don't appear. For example, I thought city areas would be more exclusive to Pokemon like Rattatas and Pidgeys and Pokemon that you would expect to find in a city. And a more rural area would have Pokemon that appear in the forest and that, like Oddishes and the bug Pokemon and even Pikachu. But I really find that kind of flip-flopped, where I encounter more Pokemon in the city or just a town than I do in my own backyard. Heck, I used to play Pokemon Go during my lunch break because I would run into more Pokemon during that short time period of my lunch break than in an hour walk around my home. That's how ridiculous it is. But from what I hear, a lot of what Pokemon Go does to generate the Pokemon net is based on the connectivity of your phone to satellite and that. So I get the feeling that there's not too much they can do in that aspect. So what I would like is a way to be rewarded just for walking around for a long enough period of time. To give credit where credit is due, that is what I get out of hatching eggs currently. It's the one thing I can actually do without having to drive out to town to walk. But that does leave the problem if you encounter Pokemon and don't have any Pokeballs, because you used them all up and haven't had a chance to stop by a Pokestop. Which is why I don't think it would be a big deal if when you logged into Pokemon Go for the day that you got 5 Pokeballs, and that happened every day you logged in. I can see what you're saying now, but Jackie K, wouldn't people just sit in camp? People would just log in every day without actually going out and exploring the world around them? Well, I got a solution for that. It's called an item cap. Just a simple if statement where if the user has too many Pokeballs, do not give them the reward. I'm even willing to be really strict with this to assure it's not a problem. Say if they don't have 10 to 20 Pokeballs, somewhere in that range, give them 5 Pokeballs for the day. Otherwise, don't give them anything just for logging in. Instead, in order to earn their daily reward, they have to walk a kilometer. And once they walk a kilometer, they can get something like Pokecoins or some other items. Considering how it takes a few Pokecoins just to buy Pokeballs in the first place, I don't see it being a big deal if we reward 10 to maybe 50 Pokecoins for walking a kilometer for the day. A day. You can only do this once per day. And I mentioned the Pokecoins because it brings me to something else that I really, really want them to fix with Pokemon Go. And that's the whole issue of the Pokecoin system. I get to a degree that it's supposed to be unfair, because that's how they're making their money off this game. For those who don't know, Pokecoins are the in-game currency, and like with a lot of mobile apps, you can use real-life currency to buy more in-game currency. However, the reason I harp on this system is there is one way to earn Pokecoins without paying money. And that's not battling in gyms. That's not going and reaching certain milestones in the game. That is defending gyms. For those of you who don't play Pokemon Go or don't explore gyms too often, allow me to explain the process of defending a gym. First, you have to reach level 5. Once you do, you get the option to choose a team. Once you choose a team, then you have to find a gym, which are in some Pokestops, but not all of them. They're actually considered separate locations from the Pokestops you would go to. So you can't just go on the Ingress, check their map, and find a gym. You might find a gym, but you might just find a regular old Pokespot. So, you've walked around, explored the world around you enough to know the location of a couple gyms. On to the next step. You have to see if the gym is your color or not. If it is, I argue you have a harder time than if it's not. Because if it's not, you get to go in with a full team of 6, take down the gym. Granted, you might have to battle a couple times to take out the Pokemon and lower their prestige enough to completely wipe them out from the gym. Once you do, you get to replace their gym Pokemon with your Pokemon. And congratulations, you defended the gym and got your first 10 Pokecoins. How do you earn more? I'll get into that a little bit. But first, if it's your team color, you have to see if it's a high enough level to have room for another Pokemon. If it does, congratulations, you saved yourself a lot of time and trouble because someone was generous enough to grind up the gym for you. Place your Pokemon in, and you got 10 Pokecoins. If not, this is where it gets complicated. In previous updates of Pokemon Go, you would battle up against a gym, train up, and every time you won, or even beat just one of the Pokemon in the gym, you would earn Prestige. And as you earn Prestige, the gym's level go up. And once the gym's level is high enough, you can place one of your own Pokemon to defend the gym. Now, in previous updates, this wasn't as bad because if your Pokemon is defeated in the gym, it doesn't actually faint. You can just heal it up with potions. But they actually fixed this in the more recent updates of Pokemon Go. And I'm not sure if they meant to, because there's talks around a 1 HP glitch where you fight against a Pokemon in the gym, and it would never faint. It would never go down, and you would lose out on the gym. Funny enough, that's actually happened to me about a week or so ago, so they haven't fixed the glitch. Instead, now when you fight against your own gym, the Pokemon faints, which I think is a little sad because I thought that was intentional since you were just battling against your own peers. You weren't actually battling per se, you were just training. So you wouldn't have to use a revive. But that's besides the point and a bit off tangent. Point being with the gym system, when you're battling against your own gym, you only get to send one Pokemon against the gym to raise up your gym's prestige. When you're battling against an opposing rival gym, you get to send a full party of 6. And as you can imagine, you can do a lot more with 6 Pokemon than you can with 1, especially if all the Pokemon in the gym are significantly higher in level than yours. It's doable, but it's a lot harder. So while sending a full party of 6 may make you go through your Pokemon quicker, you at least have a chance to lower the prestige enough to take it over. Defending and raising the prestige enough to get the chance to defend the gym, you may have the right type coverage, you may be able to do the moves, but if a Pokemon is stronger significantly than any Pokemon that you have in your party, good luck raising prestige, because you have to beat at least one Pokemon to even raise any prestige. And obviously, the more Pokemon you can defeat in a row, the more prestige you can raise. You can't raise any prestige, you get diddly squat. Even though technically it's your own team winning against your own team. Enough complaining aside, you actually go through all this, and whether you're taking over another team's gym or defend your own team enough to get the opportunity to have a Pokemon represent from your party, all this trouble, you get 10 Pokecoins. Not even enough to buy a Pokeball. In fact, the cheapest item, which I believe are incense, they cost 60 Pokecoins. How do you earn more Pokecoins? Here's the kicker. You have to have the Pokemon sit in the gym, and considering you're probably going to send one of your stronger Pokemon if you're just barely struggling to get Pokemon to defend the gym, you would want to have one of your stronger Pokemon to defend it, right? Well, that Pokemon is gone from your party until it gets kicked out. And in order to earn your next batch of 10 Pokecoins, you have to have that Pokemon sit in the gym for 12 hours. Half a day. A lot can happen in that time frame. Even if you continue to raise the prestige of your gym before you leave, there's still a good chance that unless you raise it up to another level and someone else comes and defends the gym, that someone from a rival gym could come to your gym, battle against it, and kick you out. They don't even have to defeat the gym to kick you out. They just have to lower the level of the gym enough that there's no more room. For example, don't take this word for word, but let's say that when you're level 3, 3 Pokemon get to be in the gym. If that goes down to level 2, and there's 3 Pokemon in the gym, the weakest member of the gym gets kicked out. If that's you, you lose out on the chance to earn more Poke Coins until you get a Pokemon back to defend that gym. I've got Pokemon Go at launch, and I only have 30 Poke Coins. So that means I was able to raise my gym's prestige enough to get a Pokemon in there 3 times out of the several months that this game has been out. Can you at least sort of see how I feel that this is a little bit unfair? And how I don't think it would be such a bad thing to have an alternative system for people who aren't focused on battling. I mean, we want to push the elements of Pokemon in Pokemon Go. Well, one thing they try to push, granted they kind of fail to do so, but they try to push how there's more to Pokemon than just battling. Systems like contests and all that have been introduced throughout the series to add a little diversity to the whole Pokemon formula. I'm not saying bring Pokemon contests to Pokemon Go. That could be interesting, but I'm thinking more work with elements that are already in the game. You know one that would take very minimum effort? The achievement system. For those of you who don't know, in Pokemon Go, they do have a sort of achievement. For example, there's a jogger set of achievements where if you walk a certain amount of time you get a medal, but the medals don't really do anything. They just give you bragging rights, I suppose. Since there's some relating to catching certain types of Pokemon, visiting Pokestops a certain number of times, why not incorporate a little reward into that? If my memory serves, I think the first time you get an achievement, you get experience, though I think I might be mixing that up with the lag from other events like hatching eggs and that, just not catching up until it shows the achievement. But that would give all more the reason to introduce some sort of reward to getting the achievements, because they do take time to actually earn. One of the ranks for the jogger achievement is walking 100 kilometers. 100 is not an easy amount to achieve, and takes a good amount of time to do so. So rewarding Pokecoins for things like that, I don't see being an issue. That would be a nice alternative to actually having to defend gyms in order to earn Pokecoins. It would encourage me to walk and explore more than just stand in front of a sign until I actually defeat the gym. I hate to flag on the gyms because it is one of the few Pokemon elements, one of the most gameplay inducing things actually in Pokemon Go currently, but at the same time, the way gyms work, it kind of discourages the whole purpose of the Pokemon Go. Getting out, walking around, and exploring your environment. Because it can take 20 to half an hour to actually make a good dent in a Pokemon gym. And all that time, you're just standing out in front of a sign. I mean, if you're smart, you might drive up to the location in a car and just park there, do your Pokemon gym stuff, and then walk around. But a lot of times, just standing there looking like a fool, and it just, unless you actually meet up with other people playing the game, you kind of look like an idiot. And from my personal experience, sometimes, even then, because they get so caught up in their team rivalries that I don't feel comfortable interacting with them. And of course, right after I record all this and come back and go, okay, it's time to record Sun and Moon, something else happened in regards to Pokemon Go. That buddy update that I was talking about just earlier on in the KayCast is now available for download, sort of. It hasn't showed up on my phone yet, and it is set to auto-update the game. So I haven't had a chance to try it out because it's not out quite yet, but they did just announce within the past hour on their social media page that they're releasing a new version that has the buddy system. So hopefully by the time KayCast comes around next week, I can talk about that and how it holds up, if it lives up to any of the expectations I have for it. I'm very tempted just to end the KayCast off here and maybe make a mini episode of the Sun and Moon information, because we're approaching an hour as is. And I'm not quite sure how recording is going to work out next weekend, because I don't want to get into the personal details, but there's going to be things going on that are going to make it difficult for me to record. So yeah, I think I'm going to just end it off here and upload the Sun and Moon information and spiel separate. That way I can just get it up when it gets up, and I actually have a possibility of getting the KayCast up in time. Plus, if for some reason I can't do the recording and get it up next weekend, you guys will at least have something for in between. Covering all my bases here. Before I go though, let me give a little spiel of all the places you can follow me at and support me. First of all, whether you're listening to the audio or watching this on YouTube, there should be a way to like the video, podcast, however the format is for you, and subscribe for more updates so you don't have to miss out on a single episode, even if I don't upload consistently. I do try to keep tabs with the internet on updates and changes to my schedule. Since this is a hobby, first and foremost, things can change on a dime. So if you want to keep up to date, let me list out the places you can do so. First and foremost, for updates on the KayCast and other videos I do on YouTube, I would recommend following me on the Jacket K Facebook page, which is spelled JACKITK. I do have a Twitter account as well, but it's a lot more casual. You'll find a lot of stuff that you may or may not like scattered in with the updates. But if that didn't scare you off, you can find the handle at Jacket Stuff and look it up from there. My name is Jacket K on there, if that helps you with your search. But the handle is Jacket Stuff. As for art, I believe I mentioned it earlier on, but to recap, for Facebook, it's Jacket K, but with the AY at the end. For Instagram, it's spelled the same way. And for DeviantArt, it's spelled Jacket K without the AY at the end. That's it for this edition of the KayCast, though hopefully there should be a mini KayCast within the next couple days that has all the information on Sun and Moon that I want to go over. And since I'm dedicating a video podcast to that, maybe I can go into more detail and talk more about my thoughts on certain things that other people might have overlooked. Until then though, I have been Jacket K, and I hope to see you next time. Kay?